The Royals have a brutal upcoming stretch of games, so let's talk about how we think they'll do in this edition of Locked On Royals.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. You also can catch us on wherever you get your podcasts. That can be Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast. We're on Odyssey and we're on YouTube. Just be sure to hit that follow button and subscribe. If you are a first-time listener and you want to know a little bit more about me, well, I'm based here in Kansas City. I work at Sports Radio 810 WHB. I do some producing. I do some hosting, some co-hosting, pretty much everything or a little bit that you can mix and match with over there at the station. But when you come to this podcast, when you click on this link, you are getting 30 straight minutes of Royals baseball. Comments and questions can always be sent to me on Twitter at JohnnyJ_15, or you can send them my way on YouTube. I will try my best to go out and answer them. And before we get started today and dive into a little bit of what we missed from yesterday, want to let you know that today's show is brought to you by Game Time. No better place to buy tickets than Game Time. I'm thinking about going out this weekend to catch the Royals and Padres series, and you guessed it, I'm going to be buying those tickets over at Game Time. So don't sweat. Don't worry about it. Go over to Game Time and check it out on what deals they may be offering, because it's the best place to buy tickets, whether it's sports games, concerts, comedy shows, whatever you can think of, they're going to have you covered over at Game Time. Well, you can tell right now it's still not the usual camera we're working with. It's not the usual background. It has been a very frustrating 24 hours. And I know for some of you out there, I teased that there could be 2 episodes today. That's just simply not possible with what we're working with. If you've been listening long enough, you would know that I've dealt with this time and time and again with either its connection issues or its camera issues. I don't really know why it happens when it does, but last night I'm trying to hook up my computer to the PC, and now my laptop won't turn on. So this isn't even the laptop that I usually do my podcast on. I have the appointment with the Apple Store tomorrow, so hopefully they can tell me what's going on. I couldn't even tell you, how these issues come about. I feel like I take pretty good care of my technology and stuff I'm working with, but clearly something's up. And even though we're back in our usual podcasting room, not as clear as I'd like it to be. Same with the audio, with the camera. But all I care about at this point is making sure I don't let everybody go 2 whole days without any podcasting episodes and any content. And I'm trying my best to get this out before the Royals take on the Minnesota Twins for Game 2 of a 4-game set. It'll be Cole Ragans on the bump against Simeon Woods Richardson. So it should be a really fun Game 2 as the Royals try to snap their very minor 2-game slide. I don't want to call it a losing streak. Just a little setback after, of course, their long winning streak that spanned from the A's, Tigers, and Rays series. Speaking of stretches, and tough ones at that, the Royals are beginning a gauntlet, is what I'm going to call. That's the title of today's episode, The Gauntlet. And the Royals are entering a 6-series stretch in which they are only playing playoff teams. Minnesota right now is back 4 games of Kansas City for the final wildcard spot. So you bet you're behind. This is a very vital and important series for the Kansas City Royals. Then they're going to see the Padres, who, if I'm not mistaken, just jumped into the last wildcard spot in the National League. They're now over 500. Then they are going to see Cleveland, I think it is, the front runner of the American League Central. Then I think they see Seattle or they see New York, and then it's the Dodgers right after that. They get 6 series in a row against winning teams, and of course, winning teams in that stretch are playoff teams. And I feel like I've said this before, might have been in last week's 2 episodes that we had. This stretch, in my opinion, will make or break or define the Kansas City Royals. This start has been phenomenal. Nobody can question that. You're 13 games over 500. If I would have told you that at the beginning of the year, you wouldn't have believed me. There's no chance in hell you would have believed me if I would have said it was a 13 games over 500 ball club. at any point in the season. But yet here they are 55 games through the 2024 slate. They have played good teams. They have played really bad teams. But this, in my opinion, is the toughest stretch of games they are going to play all season long. They are going to play good teams again. Don't get it twisted. But there is no relaxation period in these next 6 series. They are going to get loaded team after loaded team after loaded team, star pitchers after star pitchers after star pitchers. And I was asked this, and it sparked this segment idea. So if you know who you are, give yourself a little pat on the back. And I apologize that I didn't give you a Twitter name shout out, but it made me think, what do you think the Royals will do in this 6-series stretch? And to me, I don't think I need to go game by game. I don't even think I need to go series by series. This Royals team just has to shoot for staying at least 10 games over 500. I think that is the best case scenario, just hovering above 10 games over. You do that and you get through this 6-series stretch that ends, I think, with that series in LA against the Dodgers. You'll take on the Oakland Athletics right after that in Oakland, which will be the final time, right, of facing the A's in Oakland. Maybe it's next year. I can't quite remember. But you get to that point and you're still 10 or so games over 500. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because anything can happen in baseball, and those bad stretches can happen again, and even to inferior teams. Just because you do well against really good teams doesn't mean you can't slip up when you're expected to win. But to me, you get through that period and you're still 10 games over, you're probably still holding a playoff spot unless the rest of the American League is just going on an absolute tear. But you get through that, and I got to imagine it's a playoff team. I think I am going and locking it into that point. I am no longer hoping for a playoff appearance. I'm expecting a playoff appearance. And that, I think, is a mentality change a lot of people are going to have. If the Royals hang in there with the Yankees and the Dodgers and Cleveland and Seattle and Minnesota, they hang in with all of those teams, you're going to have that confidence of, okay, now we look up, it's mid-June or toward the end of June. There's still plenty of season left. You're not into the All-Star break, but you are getting this impression that this Royals team is absolutely for real. And even though some guys may drop off a little bit and some guys may surge, this is who they are. They are a team that is 10 games over 500 or 15 games over 500. Now, let me be very clear. If they fall to just 5 games over 500, I think that's taking a punch. I really do. But honestly, the goal by September is you're still playing winning baseball. If you have a winning record in September, even if it's 1 game over 500, you're going to have a fighting chance. You are going to have a chance to play October baseball. You're not going to be sitting pretty as if you were 10 games over 500. But if you just go back to the offseason and write up a wish list of what you wanted, haven't we all been begging for just competitive baseball for a calendar year? Right? So we can get upset and picky about, oh, they're only 1 game over or 2 games over. That means you were competitive all year long. And my final season prediction, I think, going back to my episode or 2 before opening day, I said 80 and 82. I could be a game off or so, but I remember it was 80 and 82 or 81 and 81. That was where I fell. Now, right now, my expectations are higher than that. But after this 6-game series, this brutal stretch, we're really going to know just how good of a chance they have at the postseason. And even if it's bad baseball, I mean, you could chalk it up of that's just a gauntlet. But the way the American League Central is playing and the way the Royals have been keeping up, this could be the difference. I mean, Cleveland's just cakewalking through what they've got. They did lose to Colorado to snap their 9-game winning streak. But they just faced the Angels. I mean, they did lose 3 or 4 to Chicago, but I believe they've got another cupcake right after this. So Cleveland's going to be able to extend their lead a little bit. But it's about taking some of these punches, making sure you're not swept, making sure you don't lose 5, 6, 7 in a row. You do that and you just tread water in this tsunami you're going to be facing or this hurricane you're going to be facing. You look up and you're 8, 9, 10 games over 500. I think you take that in a heartbeat. You're not going to be complaining too much about what you did in that stretch because I've looked at the entire schedule. I can't find a tougher stretch than this one that they are in the middle of right now. Not even the middle, barely beginning. This began, in my opinion, in that road start in Tampa. So they are 4 games through it, and they're 2-2. I'm not going to be disappointed walking away with 500. In fact, nobody should be. Let me know how you think the Royals are going to fare in this brutal 6-series gauntlet that they have upcoming. They're going to see the best team in the AL in the New York Yankees. They're going to see, at least talent-wise, maybe the best team in the National League in the Los Angeles Dodgers. They're going to see the front runner in the Central and the Cleveland Guardians. They have already started their series with Minnesota. They're going to see Seattle, who's a front runner in the American League West. Tough opponent after tough opponent for Kansas City. Let me know how you think they're going to do. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, let's talk about tonight's game and Cole Ragans being seen as the stopper. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. Find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. Before we go any further, want to give a shout out to a few of our sponsors today, starting with Stitch Fix. Now, with Stitch Fix, they are going to make sure that you are covered. And you can always get that instant confidence boost when you are getting in that new outfit. You get those compliments. People are telling you you look sharp. Well, Stitch Fix is going to have you covered with your brand new wardrobe. You can easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, style, and budget preferences. I order the boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription is required. And they send 5 just for me pieces plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works and send back the rest. And if you don't love something, just send it back. It's that simple. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel good as good as you look. You can get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. stitchfix.com/MLB. You must redeem that within 7 days of the sign up. I also want to talk a little bit about a local sponsor here that we are very proud to bring into the show. I can't say enough good things about them. I actually had a chance to go and see them in person, and that is PXG Golf right here in Overland Park. If you are a local listener here, you go to a lot of Royals games, well, I strongly recommend going over to PXG. I went for a driver fitting the other day. It was absolutely phenomenal. They've got the TrackMan, which is what the pros use when you are driving. It can be your long game, your short game. They're going to have you custom fitted for whatever club you may want. I had a 40-minute session. I got to drive the ball a few times. I got to see my swing speed, the exit velocity on the ball we talk about all the time in baseball. I got the distance. I got the spin rate. It felt very similar to all the analytical stuff that we bring up, but it was such a cool place to walk into. They were so helpful, so complimentary too. I don't play a ton of golf, but now I'm definitely going to with PXG. They've got just a gorgeous driver that I basically got dwindled down to after like 5 or 6 different style drivers I was going with, dwindle it down to one, and it feels perfect. It's the best driver that I've ever used, and it's sitting there waiting for me. I can go pick it up, buy that driver, and probably start beating a lot of my friends in golf. So with PXG, I want to give you a little bit of a rundown. They made me a believer, and they'll do the same for you and every golfer out there in Kansas City. Visit pxg.com/LockedOnRoyals to schedule your fitting at PXG Kansas City. That's 7157 West 119th Street in Overland Park. Get fitted for any club, and you'll get a dozen golf balls free. That's pxg.com/LockedOnRoyals to schedule your fitting. pxg.com/LockedOnRoyals. Limit 1 dozen golf balls per person. Promotion ends on June 30th. Other terms apply, and see stores for those details. So PXG, strongly recommend right here locally in Overland Park. Okay, so tonight's game is Cole Ragans versus Simeon Woods Richardson. Going to be a fantastic matchup, and honestly, a game the Royals have to have. When you look at this 4-game series, they're already 1-3 against the Twins this year. Cole Ragans is the guy you count on in spots like this, if I'm being quite honest with you. He is the one that you want on the bump. I know Seth Lugo has had the lowest ERA. I know that he has been the guy that is so reliable with quality starts. But when I think about the stopper, when I think about the ace, it's Cole Ragans. All right, Cole Ragans is the guy that game one of a wild card series, I'm going to him. Even if Seth Lugo finishes the year with a 2.3 ERA and Ragans is 3.1, I'm going with Cole Ragans. He's got the swing and miss stuff. And in these next two matchups, the Royals have the pitching advantage. And you can make a case in the fourth and final game on Thursday, they've got the pitching matchup. It'll be Chris Paddack versus Brady Singer. And Brady Singer, numbers-wise, has been better than Chris Paddack. But overall, talent-wise, tonight, it's a rookie facing Cole Ragans. And I know Cole Ragans is still very new into his big league career, but this is when you show all the fans that show up at Target Field the Royals can be for real because they've got guys like this in the rotation. Now, you take out that start he had in Anaheim, in which he gave up 7 runs in 6 innings. Cole Ragans in his other 3 road starts has given up one earned run. Now, I know you can't take out starts just to fit the narrative and everything like that, but this is the guy I trust on the road. And I'm curious tonight if he's going to keep up that same approach that he's been utilizing in his last 2 starts, saving some of the velocity so we can ramp it up 96, 97, 98 to get that third strike in every single outing we saw, or every single outing, the last 2 outings, basically. What we had seen with Cole Ragans is that he's kind of sitting 94, 95, 96. But when he wants to use that fastball on the third or the fourth and final pitch of the at-bat, it can hit 98. It can hit 99. And maybe that is to make sure he stays healthy. Maybe it's just to make sure he's not using too much stress, or maybe it's for better control. I think those are all very valid reasons when looking at what Cole Ragans is trying to do. But this is a big one tonight. You're probably going to watch this podcast episode and then go right into watching the game. It's going to be very entertaining. And hopefully the Royals offense can give him some early run support. They can jump on Simeon Woods Richardson. I think that he has been very good in his first, 6 or 7 starts of his big league career, or at least in 2024. But he's somebody the Royals should jump on, that they have to jump on. It's not going to be the same way in which Joe Ryan dominated them. You fortunately don't have to see Pablo Lopez. You got 3 guys that you can square up a little bit. And you've got 3 of your better arms in the rotation. You're 3 guys with the lowest ERAs right now. Cole Ragans might be slightly above Alec Marsh, but the point still stands. I'll take Marsh over Ragans. So your 3 best are going in your next 3 games. I think at bare minimum, you got to take 2 of the next 3. You drop game 1, and in all honesty, that was the game that you were hoping to steal. That was the game you were trying to just squeak by with. Your number 5 starter against the guy you never seem to hit. That was the one to steal, and you nearly pulled it off in the very end. Tonight, it's not you're trying to steal it. Tonight is you got to win. You've got your ace on the bump, and they've got a rookie on the mound. You should try to do exactly what Minnesota did yesterday. You just dominate on the mound, and that young pitcher is going to make one too many mistakes, and you walk away with a 6-1 win. You're hoping the Royals bullpen doesn't implode in the way the Minnesota Twins bullpen did in the 9th inning yesterday. But Ragans is your stopper, and this is what I'm going to be very closely evaluating in this 6-series stretch. Just how good can the stopper be? And it's not always about a losing streak. It could be coming off a loss. It could be building on a win. You are the one to just take the ball and go out of the way. I am going to single-handedly win us the game. Give me 1 run, give me 10 runs. It's not going to matter because they're not scoring off me tonight. Hopefully we get the Cole Ragans of the last 2 starts in which he didn't give up a run, and not the Cole Ragans we saw against Baltimore, or the Cole Ragans we saw against Houston, or the Cole Ragans we saw against Anaheim. We're not seeing that version of him. Because honestly, if Cole Ragans gets tagged for 6 or 7 runs, I don't even care that it's Simeon Woods Richardson on the mound, who, by the way, has been pretty good this year. The Royals, I don't think, are overcoming that against Minnesota. Minnesota is too good to just get into a slugfest with. You want to limit the amount of times their big heavy hitters can come up with runners on. And that's kind of the game plan for any opponent you face. But I think more specifically for Minnesota, they got some big dudes in the lineup that can park the ball 450 feet from home plate. You want to make sure that you're getting 2 outs quickly every single time. And if they have a home run, it's a solo shot. We've seen that happen to Ragans, but tonight, hopefully, you're just not even going to have to worry about the long ball, that Ragans can dominate for his 3rd consecutive outing. We'll see if he truly is the stopper tonight. Before we move on to our final segment, want to give a shout out to Locked On Sports Today. It is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now, available for free on the Fire TV channels app. When we come back, let's finally say goodbye to Angel Hernandez. That's coming up on Locked On Royals. You are tuned into Locked On Royals and the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jack Johnson. You can find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. That's at JOHNYJ_15. Before our final segment and our official send-off of Angel Hernandez, want to tell you about our final sponsor today in Game Time. If you're thinking about going out to the ballpark this weekend, stop worrying about where you're going to buy tickets. Do so over at Game Time and use our code of Locked On MLB. There are so many times I've been wondering about going to a new concert or a comedy show. I stay pretty busy and going out and buying tickets to places. Maybe at times I'm being too greedy or I'm maybe spending more money than I really should. But I tell you, I never go to any other app than Game Time. They have the best deals out there. They make it so simple, and you never have to worry about where are my tickets coming from? How long do I have to wait on my tickets? They lead you every step of the way. I've already been scanning Friday's game, Saturday's game, Sunday's game about the prices, where I can sit, what it's going to look like view-wise, and I've also been peeking on some concerts in other cities coming up this summer, and I do so always on Game Time. But if you are going to use Game Time, and I strongly suggest that you do, download their app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off on your first purchase. Those terms apply. So again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDONMLB, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Don't wait any longer. Use Game Time today. I was very disappointed last night when I couldn't do my podcast because, as you can tell, if you're watching on YouTube, a little bit of the technical difficulties got in the way. Shocker, seems to happen to me more often than not. But if you are watching on YouTube, not the clean camera we usually use. I have the usual background, but the audio can be a little bit echoey. I'm trying my best to work through it. I got a meeting at the App Store tomorrow, the Apple Store, excuse me, to see if they can fix my laptop because this isn't even mine. I'm borrowing my girlfriend's laptop, so I got to rush through and get this done so that she can go back to studying for an upcoming test that she has. So want to make sure that I get all this ironed out, get this all figured out, where I'm not going to have to worry about, dealing with the audio issues, dealing with not getting an episode up. Because I know last week I was on vacation, only got 2 up. So perfect that when I was already back from vacation, night 1 couldn't have it done. But the disappointment was not completely about not doing an episode. It was that I didn't get to talk about Angel Hernandez retiring and how long I've been waiting for this moment. And, I think I try to reserve emotions a lot on this show. I don't try to get too high. Don't try to get too low. Try to stay pretty steady because, you don't want to have something come and bite you in the butt. I've ranted very few times on this podcast before. But this is one of those times I'm going to air it out a little bit with Angel Hernandez. And even though if you're watching on YouTube, you've got the little segment, Goodbye Angel. And I think now that I always worry about typos there, I'm pretty sure that's how you spell his name. It shouldn't be too hard for me to do, but I'm not going to double check right now. Angel Hernandez was quite the stain on Major League Baseball. And I think everybody here is very familiar with my thoughts and opinions on umpires and how they impact the game. And I've stayed pretty firm in my stance of the good umpires out there are never going to be credited because the bad ones are so egregiously bad. And Angel Hernandez took the cake. There are really bad ones, And then there's the worst of the worst. Like CB Buckner is terrible at his job, right? And we can nitpick. There's missed calls here and there, and umpires don't have the strike zone. Like, I get those calls can happen. There's times that it's inexcusable, but to me, it's always about the arrogance level. It's how you carry yourself as an umpire. And I think we saw maybe the most infamous moment involving Jim Joyce and Armando Galarraga and the perfect game that never was. Jim Joyce was in tears the next day, just absolutely tearing himself down in the pressure because of how he blew that call and took away what could have been one of the greatest moments in Major League Baseball history. Perfect games don't just come about, right? And Armando Galarraga didn't have that successful of a career. That would have been putting him in a category few could ever say that they had done. But Jim Joyce was at least remorseful. And a lot of umpires out there aren't remorseful. And when they're caught failing at their job or they are caught being bad at their job, they're arrogant about it. I'm right, you're wrong. And if I am wrong, well, who cares? And I'm always a very big supporter of the players, right? And not just from being around them. And I'm not going to say I'm best buddies with the players. I've always been a supporter of players, though, because players, their jobs are on the line every single day. If you don't perform, you could lose your job. And umpires have never had to worry about that. Angel Hernandez was allowed to be so bad at his job for so many years, and he was allowed to keep it. He didn't have to answer any questions. He could blow call after call after call after call. He could just blow it over and over again, and it didn't matter. And guys and managers and players and coaches, they could lose their job because Angel Hernandez blows a call and their batting average goes down. Maybe that was their game they needed to shine, or it was a game they needed to win and they're fired the next day. I know it's not one single game, but he impacted it. He impacted the game, in my opinion, in a very negative way. And you can look all across social media. Nobody is giving the flowers to Angel Hernandez. And you know what? I think he would be more likable if he leaned into how much he was disliked by players, by managers, by fans. If he leaned in to the hate that he got, I think I would respect it a lot more. Or if he took the approach like Jim Joyce of when he screwed up calls or when he had the quick trigger of ejecting guys, he was remorseful. He was sympathetic of, I let the emotions get the best of me. I love those videos out there. And I think the last one that came out was either John Boy or might have been Pitching Ninja. It was an umpire that basically apologized for missing a call in the zone. He said, hey, that was my bad. That was a strike. I'll make sure if it's there again next time, it's a strike. It's a human element. It's a human part of the game. And that's where, we get in that debate, that argument of umpires of the human element, right? Well, part of the human element and a good part of it is being apologetic. Hey, I was wrong. That was my bad. We see at times managers and post games and even coaches with referees in football and basketball. I let my emotions get the best of me in that moment, and I apologize. That was foolish of me. Umpires never did. Angel Hernandez never did. Very few umpires would admit in that moment. Remember our episode last year of Vic Carapazza when the Royals lost because a check swing from Pablo Reyes wasn't called, and then it was a grand slam on the next pitch? And Matt Quatrero came out there to argue, and Vic Carapazza standing there, arms crossed, saying, that was not a swing. That was not a swing. And then the video clearly shows it was a swing. Zippo, nothing from Vic Carapazza. Nothing. And that's why I think there's such a divide between fans and players and coaches and umpires. There's such a divide. You can't celebrate the really good umpires because there is such a large majority of overwhelmingly bad ones. Really bad ones. And I think baseball can grow not by robot umpires. That's kind of the crazy thing. I do not think they grow by just weeding out umpires. But if there was this element of, I'm going to be good at my job, I could blow a call here and there. But on the ones you blow, the accountability, I think to me, it could be one man's opinion here. The accountability to me changes everything. If you screw up badly and you say, that's on me, that's my fault. In the same way that if I had a podcast and got 10, 15 facts wrong, instead of coming out the next day and saying, well, it was a bad site I got him off of. No, I could say that was bad of me. I didn't do enough research. I didn't do this and that. I apologize. That was a waste of an episode for all of you listening. Maybe some of you that were pissed off at me for having bad content or bad research, you'd be more forgiving. But if I sat here and just, was so remorseful about it, oh, it's never going to happen again, there are different ways you could take it. If I was abrasive and angry about it or dismissive, you'd have no sympathy. If I was remorseful, sad about it, and that was my bad, I screwed up there, you'd probably feel a bit better about me. For umpires, same exact thing. You could have a game-changing call, but if you went into the press conference afterwards, or if you answered questions from poor reporters and just admit you made a mistake, I think I'd have a much better view on umpires. And there are great ones in this sport, and I wish one day they could be revered. And maybe it's one step closer with having somebody like Angel Hernandez out of the league, but I feel like I'm not the only one that might be celebrating the end of the umpiring career of Angel Hernandez. Hopefully he becomes more enjoyable out of the game of baseball, maybe leans into the humor of being so disliked by the mass majority of Major League Baseball. Well, that's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Royals on the Locked On Podcast Network. I've been your host, Jack Johnson. You can always find me on Twitter or X at JohnnyJ_15. One last shout out to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, tomorrow, probably not going to do 2 episodes, not going to have another one tonight, not until I get my technology fixed, but we're going to go over that game from tonight, Cole Ragans, Simeon Woods, Richardson, and maybe some of the takeaways from that. Also, an update on the Royals minor league system. But until then, you take it easy, Kansas City.